Hey folks, welcome to week 9 of DMD250, Intro to Data Visualization. Alright, so week 9, let's take a look at the module. We'll hop into the week 9 overview here. Okay, so this week we are introducing a brand new concept in the world of data visualization. We are introducing the idea of wayfinding. So wayfinding is both a psychological and a design area of study and practice, and it ties directly into what data visualization is because maps are a form of data visualization. Now, we talked about this earlier, that similar to pie charts and bar graphs and rows charts and all these other fun things, maps are also a data visualization. So therefore, it ties directly into wayfinding. So we're going to introduce what wayfinding is. We are going to go over some examples of wayfinding this week. We're going to watch an interesting video about making sense of maps and how map making is a really important sort of practice in the world of data collection and data visualization. And we're going to introduce a new project, project number 3, which is you guys are going to create an illustrated map. So we're going to do this over the course of the week. Today we're just going to introduce the general concept of wayfinding, and then a little later we'll look at the assignment and take a look at the video, okay? So if you look here into the week 9 overview, it's all about that stuff. You can download the handout for project 3 right here, which you can also find under assignments, of course, naturally. We're going to go over this wayfinding handout in a second, and you can watch this video here, which is a TED Talk with this gentleman. He's a designer. His name is Aris. This TED Talk gets into making sense of maps. He is a map designer, a graphic designer, and it gets into that quite a bit. So we'll go over that also later this week. But for now, let's first decide what the heck is wayfinding. So wayfinding encompasses all of the ways in which people and animals orient themselves in a physical space and navigate from place to place. This is the psychological definition about wayfinding is. It is basically your sense of direction. And you've heard that phrase before, right? People would say, oh, I have a really good sense of direction, or oh, I have a terrible sense of direction. And it's your ability to sort of figure out where you are based on the space and the objects that are around you. The basic process of wayfinding involves 4 stages. Orientation is the attempt to determine your location in relation to objects that may be nearby and the desired destination that you are hoping to get to. Step 2 is to route decision is the selection of a course or a direction to the destination. Which way should I go? Number 3 is route monitoring, is the checking to make sure that the selected route is heading towards your destination. Just because you choose a path to follow, you have to keep checking in to make sure that it's the right path, that you're heading in the direction that you intended to. So that is route monitoring. And then destination recognition is when the destination is recognized. Hey, I'm here. This is where I was heading to. So that seems pretty simple if you break it down into those 4 steps. Where am I? How do I get there? Am I going the right way? And have I arrived? Those are the 4 basic steps, but it's a pretty complex psychological system that we use to find where we are. Now, of course, wayfinding is not just germane to humans, but it's germane to animals, and perhaps you've heard amazing stories of pets that have gotten lost, and they get really far away from home, and then quite a bit of time later, they find their way back home almost amazingly. There have been stories about dogs who are miles and miles away from their house, and then months later, they somehow find their way back home because they have really amazing and advanced wayfinding capabilities that they employ. Now, of course, some of us have better senses of directions than others. Some people never get lost. Some people feel like they're lost all the time. But either way, we all have the ability to go through these 4 psychological steps, determining where you are, how to get to where you need to go, is the route appropriate, and have I arrived at my destination? Now, wayfinding outside of the world of psychology is also an area of design, so that falls under the title of wayfinding design. Now, here in the world of design, which is directly related to data visualization, wayfinding refers to information systems that guide people through a physical environment and enhance their understanding and experience of that space. So imagine walking into an airport for the first time, and you know how complicated airports can be, right? If there's not a good wayfinding system, which is a collection of signage and graphics and other tools that help get you from place to place, you'd never find your way around, right? It's just too complex. So wayfinding design plays a really important role in helping people to get through these physical environments, particularly if they are complicated. Our wayfinding is particularly important in complex built environments such as urban centers, healthcare and educational campuses, and transportation facilities. In these areas, people need visual cues such as maps, directions, and symbols to help guide them to their destinations. In these often high-stress environments, effective wayfinding systems contribute to a sense of well-being, safety, and security. Imagine how upsetting it would be to arrive at a hospital and you're trying to attend to an emergency and you need to find the emergency room and there's no good signage, no good wayfinding, no good visual clues to get you to where you need to go. You're taking an already stressful situation and making it even worse by making it difficult to find your destination. So wayfinding can prove really crucial in certain circumstances. Comprehensive wayfinding systems often combine things like signage, maps, symbols, color coding, and other communications. It's never just one thing. Good wayfinding systems are a combination of different things, some of which are data visualization and some of which are not, but they can all work together to really create an effective system. Now, we've talked recently about things like pictograms and icons. Those play a heavy role in data visualization in general, but are very important in the world of wayfinding. Increasingly, wayfinding systems integrate mobile applications, digital displays, RFID, and other wireless technology. We now, of course, are in an environment where the interactivity of data visualization plays a big role in how we interact with data, and just as much in the world of wayfinding, in that we want to be able to figure out where we are in a way that not only gives us information, but that we can enter information into to help make it even simpler. So that's the two basic definitions. This handout's pretty short, but be sure to refer back to this so you can sort of understand what wayfinding is and what we're doing with it. Now, we're going to look at some examples of those in a minute. There's this link here, which is just sort of your reading for the week, right? Your consumable. The top 20 wayfinding systems since the year 2000. And this is a great website that goes through a variety of wayfinding systems that have been around. Now, it says it's the top 20, that's clearly a subjective opinion, but either way, there's a whole bunch to look at, and so you can scroll through and check these out. They're really nicely designed and will sort of help you understand that. Now, independent of that, let's talk about wayfinding and look at some examples in real life. Now, of course, probably the most obvious wayfinding system speaks directly to what we talked about before about iconography and pictograms, which is the highway signage system. So, of course, here is an example of a highway signage system right here in our own backyard. And it uses a variety of typography as well as color palettes and symbols to tell you where you need to go and how you need to get there as quickly as possible. We take it for granted because we see these wayfinding systems all the time, and so we're just like, oh, that's the signage on the road. That's how it works, right? But if you really break it down, the color of the signs, the green, means something. When you see an orange section, that means something, right? That means this is really important. Pay attention to it. The different shapes of the placards mean something. The red, white, and blue placard with the numbers on them, that is an interstate highway, meaning that that's a highway that goes between different states, across different states. Whereas the white placard with the number in the middle of it, well, that is an intrastate road, meaning it stays inside the state that you're in. So Route 1 only goes through Massachusetts in this particular example, whereas Route 93 goes across a variety of different states. So does Route 95. So white placard, meaning it stays within the state. Red, white, and blue means it goes from state to state. The choice of typography is important. Notice that certain words use what's called small caps. So these are all capital letters for north and south. The first one is slightly larger, but the rest of them are also capital letters, so this is referred to as small caps. that is meant to be sort of a title. But meanwhile, the names of the cities are upper and lowercase the way you would normally write the name of a city. So the first letter is in uppercase, and then the rest are in lowercase. And then some sections are just all straight caps, right? Not small caps like north and south, but straight caps. Next, right, exit only. These are directions. It's giving you something to do, right? So it's a little more important, and so putting it in all caps sort of helps emphasize that. And then, of course, shapes and symbols, right? You see the arrow here telling you that you have to veer right. You can see the rounded shapes around the signs, helps draw our attention to it. And even painted down on the road itself, we've got arrows that tell you also to veer right and to sort of move in that direction. So as, of course, you drive through various road and highway systems, you'll see all of these signage choices. They're not random. They're part of a wayfinding system that has been carefully considered and developed and updated over time. Okay, now we gave the example earlier of an airport. Airports are a perfect example of a place where a good wayfinding system is very important. Airports are large and complex, and it can be a high-stress environment if you're trying to make your flight on time and you need to get a bunch of things done, like check in your bags, maybe use the restroom, grab a snack, get on the airplane on time. And so you've got to find all these places in an environment that maybe you're not familiar with, or maybe it's just really large and complex, or both. And so big, clear signage systems are important. And so you'll see here in this particular airport, the gate signs are very large. They're pretty huge. They're in a nice bright orange color with black type on top of it, or black graphics on top of it. And so you can see them from a good distance. Notice the color coding, how every gate is black and orange. And yet all the secondary services like restrooms, baggage check-in, those are done in green and white. It's very specific. Meanwhile, informational signs, if you look back here, are done in gray and white. So there's a system to this that once you understand it and you see the colors, you get that, oh, that's for this thing and this is for something else. Also notice the scale of it all, right? The gate numbers are huge, right? B27, B26. There is an even and odd system. All of the even numbered gates are on one side of the walkway. All the odd numbered gates are on the other side of the walkway. So that helps you figure out the system pretty quickly. There's a really simple graphic showing an airplane taking off from being near a platform. That tells you, hey, this is a gate. It's not overly complex. It's not illustrative. It doesn't need to be. It's a really simple pictogram. Gets the point across, right? The word gate is much smaller because, yes, we need to tell people it's the gate, but most people understand intrinsically that these are gate numbers. And so all I really need is the number. I don't need to see the word gate. I wouldn't be confused. So if you look further away down the hallway here, you might not be able to read the word gate anymore, but you can read the big number. So that helps me get to where I'm going. And then, of course, there are other systems built into the wayfinding system that help support it, like these traveling platforms, these sort of flat escalators that run down the middle that help move people in one direction or another, these extra wide tiled hallways that allow you to walk up and down. Now, those are not part of the wayfinding. Those are sort of interior design choices, but those support the wayfinding, right? Okay, another environment where wayfinding is important, but maybe in a less stressful environment, is maybe an outdoor park, right? So this is for the Razorback Greenway, which is a park system. And so you'll see here that there are a variety of sort of data visualizations, graphics, signage, pictograms that all work together to create this really well-used wayfinding system. And so you can see a bunch of different ones. So there are trailheads, which these are the different walkways that people can hike across or walk across or whatnot. And so these are these freestanding tall signs. It has the symbol for the greenway, as well as some typographic information, some pictograms. So, right, this shows you where the parking is. The arrow, the direction arrows, tells you where you need to go. There are mile markers, so if you are keeping track of how many miles you are walking or bicycling or whatever, they have mile markers from the beginning to the end. These are sort of shorter blue three-dimensional signage. We have maps. There's this version here, and then this version that's embedded into a larger signage system. Other maps that show directional trails right here. Confidence markers that shows you, that reminds you what trail you're on, right? Just because you pick a trail, after you've been walking or bicycling for a while, you maybe need a little reminder which trail you're on. Oh, right, I'm on this one. That makes sense. Informational signs or interpretive signs, these here. And then these are called kiosks because they're multi-use signs, right? It has a variety of information on here. You can see the pictograms running up and down the right, which is sort of a key, tells you what's going on. Nice mappage system, some paragraph information that gives you some history or some important information from there. So that's a different type of wayfinding system. Now, of course, back to a slightly more stressful environment, a hospital, right? If you get off the elevator in a medical building or a hospital, the first thing you need to know when you get off that elevator is, where am I going, right? So I've landed on the second floor, and I have a collection of arrows, a collection of pictograms, and some typography, and a really simple color-coded system, right? This is a complementary color system. Blue and orange are complementary colors. And so the orange areas are decorative, right? These are some close-up macro photography of flower petals that they're using to place the floor number on. But then the blue is broken into two different shades of blue, a dark blue and a light blue. And this sort of shows you different areas on the floor. So if I need to get to any of these areas of the hospital, I know where I'm going. I'm going straight down this hallway right here. And if I'm going to these areas of the hospital, I'm taking a right off the elevator, and I'm going that way. You want to be able to figure out where you're going right away. Not only are you probably at the hospital for a pretty stressful reason. If you're going to the doctor, then you're probably dealing with something, so you want to make sure you get to where you're going. But also at the same time, you're getting off an elevator, and there's probably other people on the elevator, and they've got to move too, so you want to get your information and keep moving. Meanwhile, there's a collection of pictograms up here, which can tell the story quicker than if this was written out in words, right? We know we've got the female and male restrooms down this way. There's a handicapped restroom this way, access to a telephone that way, and a coffee shop also that way. It takes up much less room and is much quicker to understand than having to write out all of those different things. Okay, other types of wayfinding systems revolve around the idea of maps, which we're going to be building for our next project. This here is a map to help you find the various stores within a given mall. This is the Tacoma Mall in Tacoma, Washington. We've all seen maps like this. If you've been to a mall, you've probably walked up to one of these maps and determined where your favorite store is. And so it has a variety of possibilities here. You can simply look at the list of stores at the bottom, which is broken down into different areas, area 1, 2, 3, and so on. Those numbers correspond with the numbers that are in the map. They also have adjoining letters, so 6A is Sears, for example. So I can find 6A pretty quickly, and I know that that is Sears. And then, of course, there's a bunch of symbols and color coding as well. You can see that the stores are in this tan color, the food courts are in orange, entranceways are in green, exits are in red, restrooms are in dark blue, escalators and elevators are in light blue. But in addition to the color coding, there are also a series of pictograms that work that way as well. The shopping carriage represents the stores, and so on and so forth. So this wayfinding system has sort of multiple redundancies so that you can find where you're going. They could have chosen to go with just the color coding or the pictograms, but they've done both. If you tell me that the orange areas mean food court, I also don't necessarily need the fork and the knife to tell me it's a food court, but it's a redundancy that's been built into the wayfinding system just to make sure that people see it. What if somebody's colorblind? What if they don't see the color orange particularly well, but they will see the pictogram? What if people have difficulty understanding pictograms, but they understand colors pretty easily? Either way, you're making sure that people get the information that they need so that they can find where they need to go. Okay. Other wayfinding systems can be a little more artistic, a little more creative. They get the job done, but they also sort of take advantage of the space that they're given, and they try to be a little more creative. So, for example, you get off this elevator here, and it tells you, hey, you're on the 3rd floor. Okay, that's great. Does the number 3 need to be this large? Probably not. But it's kind of a lot of fun that they decided to stencil in the number 3 and paint it not only on the doorway that's adjacent to the elevator, but also over the wall, onto the side wall here, even overlapping the door handle. So this is a more creative kind of application of a numerical system to just show somebody what floor they're on. It's fun, it's big, it's bright. You're certainly not going to miss it when you get off the elevator. Meanwhile, the arrows that sort of point you in the direction you need to go, you can get to different laboratories, or the playground goes in this direction, just simply by following these large arrows with the indicators as to where they are. If I want these items, I'm going this way. If I want those items, I'm going in that direction. All pretty clear, but it's a nice creative application of typographic and pictogram information to really get you to where you need to go. Other types of wayfinding systems can be sort of three-dimensional. So far we've looked at mostly two-dimensional versions, but this here is a three-dimensional sign. It's a close-up of a signage that, of course, is made from molded plastic, and you can see that the arrow is an actual three-dimensional molded arrow. The name of the location is in these sort of 3D plastic blocks. So you can get creative in sort of three-dimensional space as well. Now, speaking of creativity, this parking garage decided to use their wayfinding system as an opportunity to do some really creative painted typography. You can see here in the examples that as you are driving your car through the parking garage, following the arrows on the ground, that the designated typographic information, when seen from a certain angle, reads what they want it to read. So if I'm taking a left here and I'm driving down this ramp, it says out. So that is my way out. I understand that. But notice these subsequent photos. If you look at this presentation from different angles, it has been painted in such a way to wrap around the floor, wrap around the electrical box, wrap around the safety cones, and so on and so forth, so that if you look at it from different angles, it feels disjointed and disconnected, but when you look at it from just the right angle, you can read it the right way. And these all do the same thing. So as you're driving down this ramp, this tells me I'm going into a certain section. I can read the word in nice and clearly, but really it's painted in such a way, it's like an optical illusion in that it shows up on the floor, on the wall, etc., etc. Now, this is a really creative application of typography for a wayfinding system. Is it completely effective? I don't know. I guess if I'm driving through the garage, I would probably think it's a lot of fun and interesting, particularly if you look at the signage at the time you're supposed to look at it. But as you can see from these other photographs, when you're looking at it from different angles, it can actually be a little confusing. So this is very creative, but, maybe not as practical as it could be. Now, other wayfinding systems are sort of entire systems that are kind of elaborate. So let's take a look at this one up close. Let's zoom in a little bit here. Go up to the top. Okay, now this is a wayfinding system for a spa of some kind. There's a swimming pool, there's a fitness and gymnasium area, there's a bowling area, and then some information. You'll notice that this relies also on some visual redundancies, just like that wayfinding system for the mall did. They have a color coding system. So if it's fitness or gym related, it's green. If it's bowling related, it's red. If it's swimming pool related, it's blue. But then on top of that, they have a characteristic line that is attributed to each one. So the gym has a zigzag line, the bowling area has a straight line, and the swimming pool has a wavy line, naturally. So you've got both color coding and different types of lines telling you where you need to go. And then on top of that, they have a whole series of pictograms. So if you look at it in application, as you're walking down this hallway in the spa, you can see that the bowling alley is that way because I have the arrow, I have the bowling pin pictogram, but I also have a pictogram of a glass, so I can also get a refreshment down there too. And I follow the straight line or follow the red, and I know where I'm going. Meanwhile, the blue wall tells me I'm going to the swimming pool, but it also tends to overlap with the fitness area in the gymnasium with the zigzag line. So you can see that even though there's some redundancies, it does get a little confusing in this system. So this wayfinding system might be a little more advanced than it probably needs to be, but I really appreciate the effort that they're making to try to make it really comprehensive. So here's a few more photos of different hallways in the spa. You can sort of see how these things are employed. And maybe it's a little bright, maybe it's a little busy, but it gets the point across. Now, outside of the color coding and the line system, like I said, there is a collection of pictograms, and this is the entire library of pictograms that is used in this system. Take a minute to go through these. Some are really obvious, like the collection of arrows, right? We have male and female symbols doing different things. This is you can walk this way, you can exit this way. This is you cannot walk this way, you cannot exit this way. Male symbol, female symbol, interior exit, exterior exit, handicapped accessible, steam room, hot stone massage, regular massage, and so on and so forth. You can go through and see if you can interpret what each of these mean. Most of them are really clear. Some of them require a little bit of thought. What I love about this collection of pictograms is that they decided upon a line weight and stuck with it through the entire thing. There's no deviation on the way these pictograms are presented in terms of the line that it uses. So it's all pretty straightforward. Smoking, no smoking. Poisonous, cheeseburger. Actually, I don't know what that is. I always call it a cheeseburger, but I have no idea what that is. All right, and then you can see these in action. We saw them applied as vinyl graphics on the painted walls, but here they are as vinyl graphics on these lucite signs for the steam room. They even apply the system to the clothing that the employees at the spa wear. So if you work in the pool area, you get the blue shirt with the wavy lines. If you work in the bowling area, you get the red shirt with the straight lines, and so on and so forth. And even for the people who are members of the spa, they can get things like tote bags or whatever that have been emblazoned with the various graphics. Same thing with the membership cards. Same sort of idea. So this is a really elaborate graphic system that not only leverages pictograms, but is all about wayfinding. It's all about finding your way around this place. Now, of course, wayfinding systems as maps is really what we're going to be focusing on for this next assignment. And we saw some maps in use in these previous wayfinding systems. The mall is a map. The bicycle trail, the park has some maps built into it. But this here is, of course, a city map. This is for downtown Yonge, which is talks about, this is in Toronto. And you can see here we have a variety of visualizations. There are three-dimensional graphic representations of buildings, like the Toronto City Hall, the old City Hall right here, the First Canadian Place. But then there are two-dimensional geometric shapes making up the city blocks using a really limited color palette. The sort of blue-gray, lighter grays, green for green space, white for roads, and orange for important buildings. You can see here that there is a circle. There is a circle that shows the area from where you are standing. Like this is the "You Are Here" section. And it shows that anywhere within this red circle is about a 5-minute walk from where you are standing. That's a really useful bit of data visualization that helps somebody if you're a tourist and you're walking around or you need to get to certain places. If I need to get to the Massey Hall, for example, I could say, oh, that's only less than a 5-minute walk. If I go east on Queen Street and then go north on Yonge Street, I will end up there in no time. Also at the bottom, you can see that there are keys. There's a map key explaining to you what the various pictograms mean, and there's a transit key explaining to you what the pictograms mean for things like buses and trains and subways and whatnot. So a really good data visualization showing a downtown area from a variety of different angles in a pretty compressed area, which is pretty great. Okay, other types of maps, of course, are more fun and whimsical. Now, this map of London might not be super accurate, but it is a lot of fun. It's a three-dimensional illustrated map, and you can see that there are a lot of 3D illustrated versions of famous buildings like Big Ben, like London Hall, like the London Eye, and so on and so forth. But this is juxtaposed against a three-dimensional, really simplistic version of the roads, as well as the main waterway, right? And so you can sort of see that this is a combination of like fun and practicality. So it's maybe not the most accurate map. Geographically, it's not as accurate as, say, this version of the map, but it's a lot of fun to look at and gives you a rough idea where things are. Now, here's an example of a 3D illustrated map that maybe has way too much going on. Unlike the London map, which is nice and simple, easy to read, and has a lot of open space to sort of give your eye a place to rest, this one is jam-packed with way too much information. You know, the 3D rendition of the buildings, this is a hospital campus. The 3D renderings of the buildings are relatively simple, but there's a lot of them. And then on top of that is a ton of iconography, a ton of typography. It's just way too busy. So you do have to be careful in creating these wayfinding systems to not overdo it. You don't want to give people so much information that it becomes overwhelming. So this is an example of sort of how to not do it. But if you're going to go for a 3D illustrated version, you know, something nice and simple like this is great. Or if you're going for a more geographically accurate one, something like this is also a really good solution. Okay, so that is our introduction to what wayfinding is. I know that's a lot to absorb all at once, but take some time to go through that. Make sure you watch the video. Maybe we'll watch this together in class. That might be a good idea too. And then we're going to introduce Project 3. Be sure to read through the project. We're going to go over it together in class, but you can read it in advance just so you have a rough idea what we're talking about, okay? So that is Project 3 Illustrated Map. Okay, so that is wayfinding. We'll talk more about it a little later in the week. If you need me, you know where to find me. Get in touch with me via email or weekly office hours, Mondays and Fridays, and I will see you soon.